Good afternoon, everyone. This is Bassam Haddad. I am presenting Flow Podcast Episode 5 here with Eliane Raheb, and I'm very excited to. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Bassam Haddad. All right, so we have a bit of an echo. Let's kill it. I am still Bassam Haddad, and I'm still inviting and hosting Eliane Raheb, our award-winning filmmaker. And I say our because we've known her for many, many years, and she's been at our events here at George Mason, at the Arab Studies Institute, and beyond. We are very excited to have her with us today to feature her three remarkable films, or three of her many films, actually. And it will be a filmography, a film journey of Eliane Raheb. First of all, مرحبا Eliane. كيفك? How are you?
Good.
Good to have you with us. Eliane, I am going to say a few words about your history, but it's not going to be enough in any way, shape, or form. I know here we will be discussing your journey with filmmaking, activism, and public speaking, as well as feature three of your foundational films that have won quite a bit of awards. I'll say about you that you've directed several award-winning short films and documentaries. Your main achievements involve the titles that we are going to address today, including Miguel's War, Sleepless Nights, and Those Who Remain. You are also a founding member of the Beirut DC institution, which I would love for you to tell us about, the Association for the Development of Cinema, which is established in Beirut in 1999. And you are also the artistic director of the Rural Encounters on Environment and Films REEF. And I know that you will be talking about this in the context of one of the films. So before we delve into the films, and before we even talk about anything, I want to ask you, how are you? I know that you are, not only are we coming out of COVID, and this is what I've been asking everyone, but also you're coming out of Lebanon, which is in so many ways in a state of deep economic collapse.
Yeah.
So how are you? And I know you've been touring. Okay, I'll just say this. I know you've been touring in the US and beyond.
Yes. How am I? I don't know. Like, you went many times to Beirut. What do you think?
I think it's bad, but I don't live there, so I come back here.
Yes. Yeah, it's very bad. It's very bad. But like, I don't see myself anywhere else. And I think that our generation have been through this before during the war.
Absolutely.
So we have a bit of, let's say, self-defense. And now, like, restarting my life again, somewhere in the world, and all the world, I think, is going bad. But Lebanon is the experimentation of, everything before it spreads.
Everything starts there. Okay, well.
Yeah, sectarianism,
War.
collapse, war, explosions. Yeah, and then we spread it to the world.
An earthquake recently. I know that everyone in Lebanon felt the earthquake. It was sufficiently close.
It was close. Of course, not as bad as Turkey and Syria, but I think it is the trauma of the explosion. Yeah. Like recently, that was our last trauma, our latest trauma.
August 2020.
August 2020. So I think in that sense, the earthquake was a bit reminding us that horrible catastrophe that we lived. And it also puts you in a state where, like, what else? What's going to happen? يعني خلاص. Everything is so bad. We were always laughing through these years saying بعد ناقص النيزك يجي. What do you say, نيزك?
All we need is like some sort of like I don't know, small planet to like hit Lebanon, or
yes.
Small whatever.
And everybody was saying, where's the nayzak? Yani, where is it? And then suddenly, you have...
Actually, I'm not sure what nayzak is. I know it's like some huge object coming from space.
That destroys,
Lebanon. Yeah, I think if it's coming, it's not going to go to Lebanon. It's because it's going to miss it. Lebanon is so small.
But we always tend to have it, Yeah, well, it's really like, it's bad, but I'm glad to witness this period of time,
Yeah.
Because it's a transitional phase to something else. And I always felt I have to be there to witness everything that's happening in Lebanon and to understand like who we are, because every time we have these, like, say, 10 years or 15 years where there's a new era, and then we re-question ourselves again on who we are, what's our role, what's our future, what's this country we're living in. So every time, like, we start from zero. And, well, this is a new era now, since 2 years,
Well,
3 years.
one thing that comes out of this difficult time and throughout, not just recently, is how artists
Yeah.
basically represent what is going on in a way that sort of stands the test of time and kind of sometimes can be more powerful than the reality, especially for those who are not witnessing every aspect of it. So my first question to you, and the issue here that we're all joining for, is to first of all learn a little bit more about your background, how you were able to navigate through the context of filmmaking, and how were you able to do this in Lebanon, and how ultimately you were able to produce films that made it to the global stage and you won awards of different sorts everywhere. If you can tell us a little bit about your film journey, and if you'd like to address towards the end, what is it that we will be featuring today? I know that we have several clips, about 5 or 6 clips of the 3 films that we're featuring, so feel free to address those.
It's a very long question. First of all, I want to draw a picture which is not that pessimistic, in the sense that art has always been alive in times of crisis in Lebanon, and I think in the region, because I think it's the only thing that saves us, in the sense that this is material for us to reflect, to ask new questions, to analyze, to define what we want, who we are. And cinema for me has always been in relation with the identity question. Since I started documentary, in fact. But before, I started with short fiction. When I graduated from the St. Joseph University, I wanted to make fiction in the beginning. And then I went to my grandfather's cinema called the Opera in Zahle. And there I made my first short film. It was also a bit of, let's say, a neorealistic film, in the sense that I use a real cinema and then I put some fiction in it, but it's based on my memories in the cinema, on the films I used to see. But those films, I used to see them when during the war, because I'm, I have lived it all, and I was born in 1972. So I was 3 years old when the war started, and this cinema of my grandfather in Zahle was somehow a way for me to be, just focusing on the magic coming from the screen and on all these stories that come from the dark, which I think is a metaphor. Like when you are in a very bad, let's say, context, or you are afraid, or you're in a you're in a dark period of your life, you need hope. And in my grandfather's cinema, that was the place where hope started. Coming from darkness, there was magic. So during the war, it was my refuge, like my shelter, the place that I developed my imagination. This is why I made a tribute. I paid a tribute to that cinema in my first short film. It's called The Last Screening. Mm-hmm. And that cinema stopped in the post-war era. Like all the cinemas in the villages, they were totally... It's not a village, let's say. It's a... how do you say Zahle? It's not a village.
Small. It's a town.
It's a town. Yeah. It's a town. There were a lot of cinemas in these towns, which totally disappeared after the war, because it was... We were more in a capitalistic era where there was no need for these small cinemas. There was these complexes coming, these, malls with their cinema. And this is very sad, because even Beirut, with all the cinema that were in Hamra, they totally disappeared. So that was a way also to say now culture is moving to something else, and to also another class, because I think that cinema was linked to the middle class everywhere. Then after it was for everybody, which is good, but also for the people who are consuming, like popcorn, huge Pepsi, whatever was more important than the film itself. It's going out and eating and cheaper than a restaurant. And okay, we watch a movie.
Not in the States. The popcorn and Pepsi at the cinema is very expensive.
They are.
Oh yeah, okay.
No, this is what I'm saying. They are more important and more expensive than the film itself. So, it's not the...
It's true.
Yeah, so it's not the culture that's important. It's all the package, and if there's a commercial film, you would have also brands, like cups with logos. Everything was to be sold. So, yeah, my first experience was through the cinema of my grandfather called Opera. And then I started being aware, I think with all the questions that you have after the war, like why this happened. I was so much living in the war that I never understood what happened. But then I was maybe 20 years old, and then I wanted to know more. So we started asking people, and then asking your parents, and there were no answers about who was fighting who, why. So I started being really driven by these questions. And this is how slowly I moved from fiction to more documentary, because I think I had many questions and I wanted to ask them, and I wanted to reflect, and I wanted to have my questions in the films, and I wanted to ask real people about their experiences. And this is how I moved a bit from fiction to documentary. It's with political awareness and social awareness. And my first feature film was called Sleepless Nights. It's not a feature, let's say it's 58 minutes documentary. It's called, what did I say, Sleepless Nights? No, it's called So Near Yet So Far. And this is a 2001 production. And that was a film based on the Intifada, on the second Intifada. Because I think that seeing these children being killed at that time with Muhammad al-Durra, and the unequal balance between children throwing stones and a whole army, Israeli army with bulldozers. And like this discourse of the West putting these in balance was for me, horrible. And you could see a live execution, a live killing of that boy, Muhammad al-Durra, everywhere on the media, and with its impact on the children, on the Arab children, and on the society. That for me was very, very strong. And I went searching for these children. Of course, not in Palestine, because you cannot go there, unfortunately. But I went to Jordan, I went to Egypt, I went to south of Lebanon, and I was following these children who were doing extraordinary actions because I identified with Muhammad al-Durra. And they were, in fact, showing to their parents, to the generation of their parents, that the Palestinian cause was still alive, and that they wanted to save somehow Muhammad al-Durra. So they wanted to go there. They wanted to really fight for justice. So I did this tour following these children. And in the editing, in fact, I was asking myself, why did I do this film? Okay, in the beginning, it was more as, this question of justice, of Palestinian cause, of everything. But then being who am I, and being raised during the war in the Christian neighborhood where the Palestinians were always portrayed, as enemies because we were in a Phalangist area in Brumana. While my neighbors was Palestinians and they were hiding this. They were Christian Palestinians who moved from Haifa, a long time ago. And I remember that our neighbor, Danielle, once said, I have a confession. We were 10 years old. It was 1982. And she said, I am a Palestinian. And we looked at her all. We were amazed that we have a Palestinian neighbor. So I remember this story through following all the other children. I remember my own childhood. And then I met again Danielle, the girl who was my neighbor, and she was in France. And we talked about this event that happened when we were children, and she couldn't remember it. So it became a journey of self-discovery, of putting again yourself in a new political context. And of course, for me, it was always important to search who I am and what are the things that move me. What's my real position towards what's happening in the region, towards the Palestinian cause, towards everything. And it became a personal film. It started with, the killing of Muhammad al-Dirra, and then it returned to me as a personal film. So that was my first documentary.
And that was before we met.
Yeah, it's 2001.
We met in 2003-04.
Yes, we met after you made your own journey to Iraq.
Yeah.
Yes, and then you wanted to show the film in Beirut, and you made a kind of lecture about it.
At AUB, absolutely.
Yes, about Baghdad.
About Baghdad.
It was called, yes.
This is the 20th anniversary, by the way, of the invasion, and we're having a whole set of events that we are co-sponsoring here with Georgetown University on March 31st, in which we are showing the film. So that's 20 years after.
And what do you think, reflecting about 20 years?
If you have a couple of days, I can share with you. Well, thank you, Eliane. I really appreciate that rather quick journey, because I know you have a lot to say and I would like to hear more, but we do want to get to some of these clips and we do want to get to what you're doing right now. If you can bring us to the more recent past, and I know that you have produced a lot of short films and documentaries, but there are 3 that we are featuring here. If you can tell us about them, and if you can tell us what you want to start with, maybe give the audience some sort of a glimpse from one of them when you're ready, and we can talk about it.
Okay. So we're gonna start talking with Sleepless Nights, because that's the real first feature I did, which comes, from all this experience I was talking about, from all the questions I had after the war, from being in a Phalangist neighborhood during the war and being afraid of them. I remember that my father was really afraid of the militias, and in the same time they were claiming to protect the area. So you have a relation with them which is mixed, because in the same time you are afraid, but they claim to protect you.
And there are other people / militias shelling bombs. Well, because I lived in the same situation, so it's a very odd feeling.
Yeah, it's a very odd feeling. And these people disappeared also after the war, because when the Syrians were somehow occupying the country, the militias were all dismantled. So these people disappeared, and I had so many questions for them.
Where'd you go?
So then suddenly in 2000, you have this Asad Shaftari, who started making his confessions in the newspaper of Al Hayat. And for me, that was the only testimony coming from somebody who was really in the war and talking about his acts. So he was somehow a bit responding to some questions I had.
Who was he?
He was the second, after Eli Hbaya, he was the second in command. And more related to the secret service of the
Lebanese
forces who are a part of the Phalangists. It's the armed side of the Phalangists, which was led by Bashir Gemayel and started really to be active during the beginning of the 80s. So Asad Shaftari was really in the intelligentsia of that militia, and he was really saying things which were shocking for everyone, because he was really going into the details. And I remember I read 3 articles coming from his testimony, and then suddenly they stopped. So I knew after that they stopped because he was asked to stop this. He was asked by his previous companions, by the other militia guy, by the church, by many people to stop. Because, in Lebanon, you have to have always this balance. If a Christian talks, then you have to have a Muslim who will talk, and then a Druze who will talk, and then nobody will talk. Everybody's waiting for this equation. Because this is how they think that it's fair. Like, or we talk all together, or nobody talks. So, okay. And then in 2006 or 7, 2004, I got to meet Asad Shaftari. And I started like having questions for him, but directly. And then in 2008, because we had a mini civil war in Lebanon, again, a week of clashes between factions. And I used to know university people who were close to us in our cultural association who suddenly became fighters, because they felt that they had to protect their areas. It was the same mindset in 2008 than the one that was in 75. So I felt that, okay, the case is not finished. We can talk again based on the confessions of Asad Shaftari to address this topic of how you become a fighter with all the blood on your hands when you are a scholar or a university person, a student, and then suddenly you shift to weapons again. So this is how the whole idea started. It started based on my relation with Asad, the confessions I read, and more confessions because I interviewed him for 9 hours, even more. And then while doing the research, I discovered many other aspects of the story, and I discovered a second character, which is Maryam, the mother of the disappeared son Maher, who was a communist fighter in 1982. And Asad Shaftari was, in fact, the person who was commanding the operation that happened when Maher disappeared. So there was a relation between Asad and Maryam, because she would think that because this guy is confessing and because he wants to somehow have redemption, he would tell her where her son is. Because I don't know if you are aware, but there's 17,000 disappeared person who we don't know where they are. They are in some mass graves in Lebanon, and nobody wants to also dig in that issue because, as I told you, if you find a mass grave of a Muslim, you have to find a mass grave of Christian, of Druze, and this is how nobody will dig in a mass grave, because it's going to be, one side only. We don't have a national discourse about this, about war crimes, about missing people. So the film made this possible. Like, it was the first time we have a torturer, an ex-torturer from the civil war, and a victim, the mother of Maher, meeting together in a film and talking about Maher, about the disappeared people, about or letting go all the anger, because Mariam is a very angry woman and nobody is giving her answers. She's been, searching for her son for more than, from 1982 till today. So she really was like a mad woman, searching, we don't know where, searching in all the country. So yeah, that was a real tense film with a lot of tension.
And I mean, I am sure, and I know that there's a trajectory of these sorts of films that you actually end up following until the most recent film, which is similar in some way, which you will tell us about. So, shall we play a clip from Those Holy Main?
No, from
Sleepless
Sleepless Nights, the
Okay.
clip one.
Let me just do it. Okay, so this is from
No.
Sleepless Nights.
أيوة.
$2002 لما عملت انت الاعترافات
2000
شو كان الكونتكست؟
وصلت لقناعة انه ce que j'ai fait pendant la guerre était très très mauvais و je ne peux pas laisser ce secret à moi tout seul. أنا بالعربي ماني un bon écrivain يعني فت على مكتبي وسكرت الباب وبلشت اكتب. طلعت معي بيرست فرد صحبة هيك. رجعتها لماري قلت لي شو بدك تعمل فيها؟ قلت لها بدي زيعة. وصلت لهالقناعة كونفانكيو على الآخر يعني إنه خلص بصير مجرم مرتين إذا خليت هالقصة لإلي أنا يعني.
محاول تقتل ناس؟
ايه طبعا كانت مهمتي اعمل هالشغله هيدي يعني.
بأي طريقة كنت تحاول تقتل؟
يا تفجير يا قنص قواص عن قريب تسميم. بدي أسألك أنا سؤال في مجال من بعد ما سمعتيني هلأ عن الناس اللي قتلهم شو رأيك فيي؟
هلا هو صعب الواحد يتخيلها
مثل ما أنا صعب أتخيلها زيت شي.
بقريها بس فيها غلطتين. انا مواليد ال 55 مش عمري 55، عمري 56 بصير بهالطريقه. ما كنت رقم 2 بالقوات انا.
بشو كنت رقم 2؟
بجهاز استخبارات تبع القوات، مش بالقوات اللبنانيه. القوات اللبنانيه ما فيها رقم 2 اصلا يعني. اسمي اسعد شفتري وعمري 56 سنه. انا شاركت بالحرب الاهليه، كنت رقم 2 بالامن. بالحرب عملت كل شيء ممكن الواحد يعمله، قتل، خطف، سيارات مفخخة.
That was the logo, and I think I was on mute when I said all that, by the way. So I was saying that I sometimes play the logo or don't play the logo early on because we're trying to go against the YouTube algorithm where you're supposed to have these bells and whistles. We're not going to do it. We're going to do it our own way. In all cases, this was the logo for the Flow podcast. This is podcast number 5. And this event is co-sponsored by GMU's Middle East and Islamic Studies program, as well as the Shar School at George Mason and the Arab Studies Institute. Welcome, Eliane, again. We just saw a clip from Sleepless Nights. If you can tell us what was going on in that clip. Unless you want me to play the second clip and then you can talk about them.
No, I can introduce this clip that we saw. In fact, this is the first part of the film where you see that I am basing my encounter with Asad on his confessions. So I have this tape with me. It's a Tascam, player. And we were both hearing the confessions that he told me in the pre-interview where I was having all the research with him, and I was recording with that Tascam. We should bring money from Tascam to sponsor me. By
You
the way,
did say Tascam 16 times.
yes. And so it's also to show the process to the audience that, in documentary, we tend to say this is the truth, and we tend to say this is a voiceover, so it's voice of God, and we tend to say that the filmmaker shouldn't be in the film, So I was trying also to expose the audience about the truth of that moment. So that moment is me, the filmmaker, coming to Asad Shaftari and making him listen to his own confessions that he told me in private and commenting about it. So in that way, they know that I did a research with him before, and that later on in the film, many times I will confront him with his own words. Because through this research I did with him, I really transcribed everything. So when we shot, I really knew what he told me. And sometimes I felt that he was changing his narrative, which you will see also in my film with Miguel's War. I mean, it's a way for me to confront the characters to the text that they tell me in the beginning, especially if they are either hiding the truth or changing this narrative to manipulate, or because they are somehow doubting again their own words or doubting their own acts. So it became in my style to use the text in that way. And this is a good introduction also because you see this guy, so he's talking about his own killing, his own acts, and being confronted to what he told me. So he's listening to himself, and then on paper also, I transcribed what he said, and he is saying it. So it's clear who this guy is and what he did before. And in the film, we're going to really go through these confessions and try to understand why he did what he did. And then also Mariam, the second character that we're going to see in the second clip, will become not only a character, but also his conscience. In the way that, okay, you can say with word that you are sorry, you can talk about your acts, but do you really want to be confronted to somebody's pain, somebody who's still searching for truth, and do you really want to tell her all the truth? How far you can go in your confessions, and what's the limitation of all this? So the scene we're going to see was shot in a kind of memorial for the missing people, which did in Lebanon, because they were working on this topic for a long time. Shall I say who's
That's fine, yeah, please.
Okay, is a research center by Luqman Slim and Monica Borgman. Luqman, who was assassinated in Lebanon some years ago. So it's a place with a lot of resources, and they did some exhibitions about the missing people and some forums. So they were very active in that sense. So they did this exhibition, and I brought Asad to that exhibition of the missing people to really confront him with the pictures of all these missing figures, and to see how far he could go. And then Mariam, the second character, the woman who was searching for Maher for a long time for her son, comes in the exhibition. So it's a really very tense moment, which is really like an explosion. I am making the microphone explode as well. And that was one of the climax of the film.
So shall we go to it? This is enticing. Number 2, right?
Not this one. Sleepless Nights. تحت.
أنا ليش مركز؟
كيفك؟
الصحة
كيف الحال؟ ماشي الحال؟ وينه ماهر؟ ما بعرف. بدنا نسأل اللي بيعرف.
جيت لهون قبل ولا؟
يعني بدنا نسأل اللي بيعرف.
مين بيعرف؟ أسعاد؟
أنا وياه اشتغلنا لنعرف شيء، بس هو يقول لي. بلدك كذبة، سياسينا كذبة، المجتمع الأهلي كذبة، الحياة كلها كذبة. ابني لسان الشباب الوطني اللبناني ترك الجيتار، ترك الدربكة، ترك الكتاب، لحق فهموا انه اسرائيل قدامك والبحر وراك وهيك بصير في وطن. انتوا ضميركم مدفون، انا ضميري مش مدفون اتجاه ابني، انا عندي مسؤولية تجاهه. انتوا ضميركم ما في ضمير مدفون، انتوا جماعة مادة، جماعة بعتوا كل شيء. أنا اليوم شو بعمل يا أسعد شفتري؟ بدلني على مقبرة ابني لهم رحت الله ترابه، دلني. ما بدي نصب، ما بدي شيء، بدي عظمي من عظمات ابني. شرفني وين؟ شرفني وين انتوا غيرك؟ قولوا لي لوين وصلتوا؟ ليه عم بتطلع فيي هيك؟ ليه عم بتطلع فيي هيك؟ زعجتك، مش أكتر ما أنا مزعوجة، مش أكتر من أنا
ما
مزعوجة.
زعجتيني ابدا، ليه بدي انزعج؟
مش أكتر من أكيد رح تنزعج. بقى في انتوا عم بتفكروا بأم مخطوف؟ انتوا عم بتفكروا بقضية مخطوف؟
ست مريم،
اعمل معروف، ما حدا يحكي معي، ماني قادرة ولا كلمة احكي. قلت لها اليوم ما عادش تحكي معي، ما حدا ابدا.
بس انا بدي اقول لك كلمه واحده.
ما حدا ولا كلمة، ولا كلمة. بدك تقول لي وين ماهر شيء؟ تا اسمع، بدك تقول لي وين ماهر تا امشي، غير كلمة ما بسمع ابدا.
Electricity when I shot.
There was electricity at the time. Well, this was very, very powerful, and I mean, it's fortunate that this happened actually live on camera.
Yes, yes. That was a surprising moment even for the crew, because I would have never imagined that it was going to be so much explosive.
Well, how can people watch this film, Eliane, right now, if people would like to watch it?
This one is available on Netflix
Oh,
at the
okay.
moment, yes, for 2 more years.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right, Sleepless Night by Eliane Raheb. That's excellent. Well, you've heard it here. Okay, Eliane, I don't want to do this because I would like to ask you more questions about this film, but I'll also ask you the same question at the end when you show the Miguel's War. It's a very similar question
Yes.
about your own courage doing this in the middle of a context where you're interrogating very powerful people, and just to see how whether anything happened, whether you were pestered or bothered, and how you might have reacted. But I'll ask you that question after Miguel.
Okay,
Because
okay.
it's also a similar theme. So would you like to take us to Those Who Remain?
Yes. In fact, I started working on Miguel's War before Those Who Remain. But that was a very complex film, Miguel's War, because it's in the same, let's say, complexity than Sleepless Nights. It's about the confessions of somebody and the multi-layered character and the multi-layered context. So in between, I wanted something to be more, let's say, light. And I also wanted to go out from Beirut, because for me, Beirut was really, after Sleepless Nights, I felt that all Beirut is like a mass grave. Like there is death everywhere, and there are secrets and lies everywhere. Of course, this is all Lebanon, but Beirut is really the place where all this, I mean, with post-war projects, there was a big lie, like we are claiming to be a very modern state. We are claiming to finish with the war, but we are trying to be this vitrine of, I don't know, luxurious products, nightlife. We are trying to market Beirut, but in the same time, we have all these sad stories and all this trauma that was not dealt with. So I really felt that I wanted to take a break from Beirut and to search for some peace somewhere. And at that moment, I started hiking in Lebanon. I started going to the mountains. I started meeting people in the rural areas. Because also, like, this lie that Rafiq al-Hariri created, like this Beirut, was so disconnected from everything else. Like, he put everything in it, and then all the rural areas were left to deal with their own problems and their own shit, and the people living there being totally marginalized. So I started discovering again Lebanon, and discovering the beautiful sides, but not in a touristic way, in a way that is more rooted to our identity, our existence, our role, our history, because Lebanon was not existing as a state for a long time. It was more the mountains of Lebanon that were the base of the country. So I started revisiting these mountains, and then this part of Lebanon, Akkar, was totally for me a new place, because even in the history books, Akkar is not marketed. It's Mount Lebanon, because also, like, the history books are totally a lie. Who wrote them? It was the project to market Beirut and market Mount Lebanon, but Akkar was totally missing from that. And existing in the media as a place of poverty, a place of deprived people, of ISIS, of Islamism, of extremism. And when I really visited Akkar, especially the mountains, I felt that it's so beautiful. It's so unique. The nature is so rich there, and it's so out of our scope. And by chance, I met this Haikal, who is the main character of Those Who Remain, who is a farmer living in Al-Jurid, how you say, the clearance.
The rural area, like deep rural areas.
Deep rural in the mountain where, I mean, there's nothing there. And he has like his own kingdom that he created with his own hands. He is somebody who's self-sufficient, who has animals, who also builds his house and builds his restaurant with his own hands. So he's in the same time a carpenter, in the same time a ma'mere, how we would say.
Works on construction.
Yes, in the same time he
Builder.
has cattle, and he makes brandy. He has apple. So he's really like a fascinating character, and he has this philosophy.
This is him, right?
Yes,
Okay.
and he has this philosophy of being very much rooted. And I met him, it was a time where ISIS was really active in Arsel, which is not very far from Akkar when you go from the Bekaa. And there was a whole fear in the area that ISIS will come to Akkar from the mountain, and who would pass by his restaurant and his land. And he was like so peaceful, saying, if they want to come, ISIS, they will have to pass by me. You know, he had a rifle.
A rifle.
Yes, just in the restaurant, just like this, you know. But we know, like, if ISIS want to come, a rifle is nothing. But he was so much rooted and constructing a house to stay. So he became for me a metaphor of staying in your land without these political slogans of al-wujud wal-baqa, you know, the one that are really marketed for the tension. He was doing it genuinely with his own hands. So it became a film about how you remain in your land, who are the real people who are staying, what do they do to stay. It's a philosophy not only about a peasant, but because this is a universal story, you know, how peasants and farmers stay in their land. Mm-hmm. But it's how you stay in your land when it's such a complex geopolitical area, and where as a minority you are threatened all the time, but you do not take this minority thing to cry on yourself or to be afraid. On the contrary, you want to stay. And of course, when I did this film, I was thinking of also the Christians of Iraq, you know, the Christians in Syria, the minority that are everywhere in our region, which is totally rich with this ethnicity and this multi religious groups, and that was a bit starting to disappear because all of those wars. So he became also for me a metaphor of, as a Christian Maronite, but very different from the fascist groups that we hear, how he can stay and be, in the contrary, an example with his own place. The place is very important, his place, his space, a place where everybody would meet and would stay and would feel good. Mm-hmm. So he reminded me of my grandfather before the establishment of the Lebanese state. You know, of all these people who used to go from Lebanon to Syria to Palestine to with their cattle, without these borders, without these tensions. So I saw in him all this. And this is why I did.
And he carried the film.
He carried the film.
Wow.
And it was a very beautiful relation between me and him, because you know, as a filmmaker, after you do a film and it's successful, you go around the world. And he, because he's a, you know, peasant, he stays there and he doesn't have access to all this. So I felt also I was grateful for him. So my film supported Haikal, supported his own place, his own work. I was also supporting him with things that I would win, money I would have. I was supporting the place. So I was really felt grateful for him and for him being there, you know, just being there. And today, Haikal made money in Corona. I'm talking about money because it's important for these people. It's how a simple, you know, thing make شو بقولوا بولدناج يعني effect.
Snowball.
snowball. This film brought to him many people. Like now, he is
How
an
did he
address.
make money during COVID?
He made money because everything else was closed. And because he has his own republic and nobody comes, like no police, no. And so his restaurant was open for everyone, and he was, making cheese. Now he makes very good cheese with his goats, and apple brandy and ara. He makes everything. So everybody was so happy to go
Can
there.
you tell people what ara is?
Ara?
Just in case somebody doesn't know.
What's ara?
I don't know. It's like it's
Ouzo.
the Lebanese version
Raki.
of. It's the alcoholic beverage that's made of from anise seeds.
He makes it from apple.
You made ara from apple? Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
Yes, he's very creative.
This means it's also healthy.
Which is very, and it doesn't hit your brains. So he is a very self-sustainable person.
That's great.
And it's a win-win. This is what I like about this film also. It's a win-win experience between me and him. A very nice relation. And every year I go there many times to have his blessing. Because I believe he has something very spiritual. I just want him to put my hands on me to touch.
I'll be honest, I have not seen more than just clips of this film. Now I want to see it. Shall we go to one of the clips?
Yes.
Is this it?
This is the first one.
Do you want to share anything about it, or should we just talk about it after?
وين سوريا؟
بدك تشوفي قلعة الحصن؟ سوريا هاي القبيلة كلها هيداك قلعة الحصن. في خط طويل في شجر بسوريا، هيدا خط الترين، وتحت منه هاي الحدود، في خط شجر كمان، هاي الحدود اللي بتفصل النهر الكبير هونيك اللي بيفصل لبنان عن سوريا.
وشو في فوقك وعلى يمينك وعلى شمالك؟
على يميني هيدا جبل أكروم، منه بالرايح بصير بيت جعفر، عشيرة بيت جعفر عندها أرض من جبل أكروم وبالرايح. ومن هون هيك تروح جنوب بتفوتي بأرض الشيعة، توصلي على مرشحين بقى.
وهونيك شو في؟
إذا جيت الغرب هلا بيت وين؟ عندك سندياني على حدود البيت، عندك السن، عكار العتيقة، المراحات، هذا خط كله سني من حدود البيت وبالرايح.
ونحن هون وين؟
شنبوك.
كمان موارنة؟
أهلي كانوا عايشين هون قبل، وكانوا عايشين بشفية، وما كان في طلقات ولا كان في كوامين ولا كان في شيء، ما كان في غير المعزة. مشان هيك سموا هون شنبوك الفرنساوية شان دي بوك، قد ما كان في معزة في هذه المنطقة.
We're going to show the second clip.
Yes. And we'll talk about
then
both
we'll
of
talk
them
about
after,
both.
yes.
يا عين عليكي. Those who remain.
هاي الكنيسة هاي كنيسة قديمة، ما بعرف عن يا على دور البيزنطيين أو الصليبيين. اسمها سيدة دايد عنين. مبينة هون في إسا العقد مبين بالحجار اللي ساها بيني.
مين كان ساكن هون ليقدسوا له؟
بالقليلة 1000 سنة، 1200 سنة، 1300 سنة، ما بعرف. بس أكيد في سكن، ليش بده يعملوا كنيسة يعني ضخمة يعني هي. وهي عاد بالباب الكنيسة هي. عاد بضخمة هي من فوق. هيدي كان باب خشب بسموه باب بصوص ونقطة، يعني محفور محل الخشبة بقلب الصخر مش قليل يعني، بيب كان ضخم.
هيكل هيدا هو مسير مسيحية لبنان؟
مسيحية لبنان ومسيحية الشرق مثل العدبة هي إليان، ليس العدبة مثل العدبة يعني بتهبط بس بتضل عدبة، بتضل عدبة. هول هن مسيحية لبنان والشرق يعني. نحن من هالبلاد لا نزول، نهبط ايه بس ما منزول.
فكرت أنا باسم للفيلم.
كنا قلنا لك انه سميه عتبة البيب.
أنا فكرت شي تاني.
قولي.
سهرية.
صغير عليه. عتبة البيب هي أساس البيت. إن وقعت العتبة بيوقع البيت. هلا هذا الشغل اللي هون هو عتبة، فعلا عتبة يعني. إذا سقط هذا الشغل بطل في حدا هون. بيروح الوطن.
اللي هن المسيحية؟
هن الناس اللي قاعدين بالأرض. العكاكلة إذا وقعت العتبة عندهم بيهجوا، إن كانوا مسيحية وإن كانوا إسلامي. قلنا شو إذا فلوا الإسلام ليش نحن فينا نعبي محلهم؟ ما حدا بيعبي محل حدا.
Yeah.
Wow. He looks like a very charismatic personality. So I'll let you address these scenes.
Yes, I want to say that in this film, I was more an observational. It was more an observational process. I followed Haikal. Haikal, by the way, means temple in Arabic, and he is really a temple in the sense that he's very strong and he really gives you security, and you feel that he is staying, whatever happens. And I needed this at that time, so. I was observing him working. I was observing him doing little things, cutting his apple, going with his cattle. He was giving me hope, and in the same time, the spirituality that I needed for loving again Lebanon after diving in the difficult stories of the civil war with the previous film. So I feel that Haikal became a metaphor of the Lebanon that I like, that was represented in the late history before the establishment of the state of Lebanon, which brought all the problems with it. And also, like, it's a sweet film somehow between Sleepless Nights and Miguel, because I won't say sweet, but let's say less confrontational, because Haikal himself is a peaceful person and he has his own philosophy in a very complex geopolitical place. So it's more about rooting yourself when everything is so difficult around. But he himself as a character is not that violent, or let's say traumatized, or with all these complexities that you see with other characters in the films. And because we wanted to show this film, in fact, in Akkar, we didn't find any place to show it as in cinema, because there's nothing there, really nothing. So I remember that we really wanted to invite all the village to see the film, and we just showed it in the restaurant of Haikal, and about 200 person came. It was magical screening with a Q&A. And it gave me the idea at that time to put some contribution from what I learned all through these years in Beirut DC in organizing festivals or bringing culture to the places I felt it was important. So this is how I came to establish this REEF festival, which is the Rural Encounters or Environment and Films. It happens every year in Kubayat, in the area of Haikal. And it's becoming very, very successful. It's a very nice festival with hikings, with environmental awareness, with rural screenings at night, open air in a silk factory which was abandoned, with a lot of food, with a lot of crafts. It's a very, very nice festival and very unique in Lebanon, in the area. And it also came as an urgent matter for me and for the other people with whom I work there, to really highlight the beautiful rural stories and to impact the local talents that have no access to culture or to cinema, so that they start saying their own stories. So we do also workshops, and there's a short film competition, and it really created a very nice effect on the people of Akkar.
That's awesome. Where can one find this, Eliane, this particular film?
Those Who Remain? Not yet. It's not yet available. I didn't put it on YouTube because I was really hoping that we could generate some money by selling it, like what happened with Sleepless Nights on Netflix. I have some promises to show it on some platforms because, being independent filmmaker is very tough. Yeah. And we have to have some...
Absolutely. You need to recoup
funds,
some of
money.
the expenses. Yes. Okay. Wow.
But they can email me. You can put my email.
We will do that.
Yes, and if someone wants to see it, I always show it.
Absolutely. I'll put your email during the next clip. And this takes us to the last segment, which we do have like 12 minutes. And that's a very heavy film, so we might stretch it out a couple more minutes. But would you like me to show a clip, or do you want to introduce the film, Miguel's War?
We can show the first clip because it introduces itself as well.
Let's do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
ليه سموك ميشيل؟ مين هو ميشيل؟
الأركانج بيقتل الشيطان بالسيف.
ميشيل ولا ميغيل؟
شو نصور؟ أكثر إفار عملته بحياتي هو إنه أنسى مين أنا إنه أمحي ميشيل جليلاتي. جربت بإيدي وإجري أمحي ميشيل جليلاتي، ما فيك تتصور لأي درجة. أول كم سنة وقت اللي جيت على أوروبا بمدريد، وقت عالم يسألوني مثلاً شو اسمك، قل لهم ميغيل ألونسو. إنه قد ما كان حلمي يكون إسباني، إنه ما يكون لبناني، ما يكون خصني بلبنان. صدقت انه اسمي ميغيل ألونسو لدرجه عشتها عشتها انه انا اسباني، انا انسوسيان وانا مبسوط بحالي. انا كنت عايش بمدريد، كنا ننتهك على الطريق اللي يفنتروا على بعض وينتهكوا كان حلمي يكون اسباني، انه ما يكون لبناني، ما يكون خصني بلبنان. صدقت انه اسمي ميغيل الونسو لدرجه عشتها، يعني عشتها انه انا اسباني، انا انسوسيان وانا مبسوط بحالي.
انا كنت عايش بمدريد، كنا ننتاج على الطريق اللي يفنتروا على بعض وينتاكوا وين ما كان، والهوموسيكسواليتي مدحوشه مع الهيتيروسيكسوال، مش معروف الله وين حطيتهم كلهم سوا، والاورجي والما اعرف شو. هذا كان شيء انا عشته.
Wow. Okay, so this does introduce itself. I'll let you talk a little bit about the clip before we show the second clip, but I want you to introduce this film more officially.
Yes. Well, this is Miguel, who has a multi-layered identity, who, in the same time, lived as Michel when he was a kid in Lebanon, and then he had a total different life as Miguel when he moved to Spain, because he had left Lebanon in the 80s because of all the trauma and all the oppression he had lived on many levels. And then he went to Spain, and there he totally had another different life, which is completely the opposite of what he had in Lebanon. He really went into all the extremes. And when he came to Madrid, it was a post-Franco era. So it was the era that you see in Almodovar's film, like this total liberty that came after the oppression of...
Which is what he was referring to.
He was referring...
The clip of like debauchery and so on, which, by the way, as we were getting ready to end the clip, I accidentally rewound.
Yes.
The moments where he was saying the things that, thankfully, in the ad I shared, that there is some strong language. So
okay. Yeah. Well, and then it's a film about the several traumas that you can have in your life and how you reinvent your identity after you live horrible things. But it's also a film about how you tell your story. And what do you fantasize and what do you keep from all this? And how family, religion, and politics shape your identity. And in his case, make him hate himself. So shaped his inferior complexes because it was, these institutions were very heavy on oppressing him on all levels. So when he moved to Spain, he really lived the other life, which was a life of really debauchery, as we say. And when I met him accidentally randomly, let's see, not accidentally, in Barcelona, I was showing Sleepless Nights, in fact. He was the interpreter of the debate. So he watched Sleepless Nights and he was very much disturbed. And after...
because of his own history with the...
I didn't know in the beginning. I was seeing this translator, this interpreter sweating, and saying things. I was saying, what's his problem? Then after, when we went to have a drink, I told him, why were you so tensed? You were sweating. I said, well, because I didn't want to watch a film about the Civil War, and I didn't want to remember everything. And then I saw this film, and I was obliged to see it till the end because I had to interpret your film. And he started talking about his own history and about his own life. And it was like as I show in the clips, like somebody throwing on you everything with all its raw language. This is why I kept it in the film as it is, because I didn't want to censor Miguel, who was censored all his life. I wanted to keep this raw language because this is how he talks. This is his way of expressing. And I think also it became an exercise of honesty between me and him, all the film. about talking about our own taboos and talking about everything that we fear of and everything that we talk in the dark rooms, you know, in the region, and we don't dare talk about it explicitly because it is haram or it is not the main course, the mainstream language. So I really wanted to make a catharsis for all of us, for not me and him only, but all our generation, and finish with all this. Let's finish with what we think about these institutions who ruin our life, you know, how the society try to make your identity not what you want. So queerness in that sense is not only about being homosexual like him. It's about being different. It's about being outcast. It's about being not what the society wants you to be. So this is why it was needed in the film to really go through all this and finish with it and try to reach the essence, you know? Like we all have layers of lies, of fantasy, of showing off. It's very it's very Lebanese to have this show off, to try to be somebody else, to try to be, and not to face yourself and face your own fears and face your own story. So with him, we did this exercise, and it really has a cathartic aspect. And I think when the audience sees a film, it happened in Berlin, it happened everywhere, they all relate somehow. With their different backgrounds, the people, because
wherever you're at. I mean, it's not like you could say everything anywhere. Actually,
yes,
it's not just in Lebanon.
Yes.
Let me play. Shall I play the second clip?
Do we have
close?
time?
We have a minute. Yeah, we have a couple minutes.
Yes.
We'll play at least a bit of it.
No, it's Miguel's war animation. Yes.
Okay.
انت هلا عمرك هون 17 سنة
17 18 سنة عم بحلم كيف بدي فل من لبنان، بدي امشي وانسى لبنان وانسى،
بس ما عم تقدر تهرب، هاي الحقيقة.
ايه انا اخترعت عالم لحالي.
عم بيسمع كاسات شو؟
كاسات البكي لبيتهوفن. كنت مسجله هيك عدة مرات ورا بعض، هيك بصير ببكي كتير.
لا هيجنني.
كنت أحلم إنه صار هزة أرضية، بينكسر لبنان، بينقطع عن سوريا وعن الشرق، بيصير بيروح بالماء. حلمي إنه نوصل على إيطاليا ونلبس بإيطاليا. المشكلة إنه بالسيناريو يعني كيف بدي أعمل منشان بس تنبقى المسيحية بس ونوصل على إيطاليا، يوقعوا منه الإسلام بلا ما يهروا المسيحية. إذا بدنا نوقع الشيعة وبعدين الدروز نكون الماكسيموم، لأنه إحنا فوق بس بيناتهم في مسيحية. شو بنعمل؟ هزة أرضية بعدين بيطلع فولكان بيموتوا كلهم، بس إنه الفولكان بيطلع عنده عنده عدة كراتير يعني، بس بالضيعة الدرزية إنه كانت مشكلة يعني.
وبراسك وقتها بدك تروح على إيطاليا شو بتعمل بأمك؟
شو بدي أعمل فيها يعني؟
من وين؟ من وين أمك؟
أنا لبناني.
أنت واحد شرشوح،
روح من وشي. أنا لبناني. للوطن.
ربنا بيحبك إمام الصقصوري. لبنان كله ما بيطلع اتحارب بالشام.
السوري برا، الفلسطيني برا، كل واحد لازم يدافع عن أرضه وعرضه ووطنه.
هالأرض هيدي لإلنا، لا فلسطيني ولا سوري ولا ربه بيقدر يطاول علينا وياخدها.
وكيف خلص هيدا الحلم؟ كابوس؟
بدي اقتلها، بدي اذبحها. حلمي كان كل يوم فوت على المطبخ وجيب سكينة واذبحها بالليل. تحترق سوريا، تتنتف، تتهدم، تحترق دينا، ما يبقى فيها شيء.
خلي 30 سنة.
إذا لو كان عندي شغلة بس هيك بدي أغيرها، رجعت وقت كان عمري 17 سنة بتعرف على حدا يهتم فيه.
Oh my God. I think we did not. I think everything was on mute
Everything since when?
since after the last clip.
Okay. What do you want to do?
I think we're going to actually edit it.
Okay.
And
You want me to talk about it again? And then...
yes. Unfortunately,
You are so taken by me.
I was so taken by you.
So that you forgot all the technique.
Yeah. But I do want to re-record that last bit, but I would like to take up more time and we will edit it and include it. Apologies. I was like really into the film and listening to what you were saying. We were on mute like the whole time after that last clip. So can we do that? Can we?
Yes.
Can we actually take a bit more time? We will conclude now, and then when we publish the version, we'll publish it with an extended bit.
Okay.
So instead of it being like 3 minutes, it'll be like a bit more extensive. But we did promise people that we will add your email. So let me make sure that we do that. Here it is, Eliane Raheb at gmail.com for people who are interested in seeing the second film, Those Who Remain. And of course, Miguel's War is doing the rounds now, so they would have to actually wait a little bit. So we will, as I shared, include the final version online when we advertise and disseminate this podcast. And until then, I want to thank you again so much for being with us and for coming to share your story, and you're joining with us. I know you're on a tour and I know you're tired and you still were able to make it. So shukran aktir, thank you so much. And come back.
Thank you, Bassam. Always nice to talk to you.
Always great to speak with you. Let me, let's end now, and we will see you again pretty soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.